And we will start with the opening statement from Coach Freeman.
All right, I got some notes kind of from the game, but, you know, it was a great scrimmage. The offense ended up winning to keep the blue jerseys. It was actually a 2-point game, and it's a unique scoring system, but a 2-point game going into the last series. And I was going to go 2s and 1s to finish, but I think we're at 80-something plays, and I kind of wanted to finish with the 1s. So we cut that last set of 2s, and really it came down to execution. That there was a big play. I think second down, offense hit probably a 20-yard gain to Tyree to really seal the deal. And I don't know what the final score was. I think Hartman ran in a touchdown at the very end, but it really was a good game. Kind of notes from the game is the offense came out early and really did a good job. They were really good doing a good job of executing, getting first downs, and they were up by a significant amount of points. And then you almost saw this lull a little bit. I don't know if it was the heat. I don't know if they felt complacent. Then all of a sudden the defense came back and surged back with some negative yardage plays. And, again, it was 2-point scrimmage with the last series as they took the field. We got to continue to improve on penalties. We had too many penalties. And it's a difference between undisciplined penalties versus aggressive penalties. We'll take aggressive penalties all day long. We can't be perfect. But if you're undisciplined and you're getting penalties, I don't know who, I think we had one personal foul, a couple holdings, a defense aligned offsides. Those are penalties that we have to be more disciplined. It can't happen. But it was really encouraging to see, 80, 88 plays, 90 plays, battling, guys stepping up, making big plays today. And you try to create this environment where it's almost like game. Like, well, listen, we can't get 80,000 fans in here, but you try to build this thing up that, hey, man, this is for the jerseys. Like, you're going to go into Notre Dame Stadium. It's a sacred place, and we got to understand that. And then really be able to see who can execute, right? Who can just do their job every play when you try to build this up, because it's natural as we get here in the season. When this place is filled, there's going to be pressure. They're going to feel it. And how do we get them to focus on doing their job? And so it was good. It was a good scrimmage. And so now we have 4 practices left to, including the spring game as we close out this spring. I want to just, before I open up for questions, just address, the Caleb Smith situation. And he's retiring from football. We wish him all the best. It was what's best for him, and ultimately, that's, as a head coach, all you care about is he made the decision that this was probably what's best for him, is retire from football. And I think he put out a statement and went into details on his reasons why. But we wish him all the best, and we're grateful for the time we had with him, and wish him the best moving forward. So, with that, I'll open it up for any questions you might have.
Okay, we'll start right in front of you, John Bryce.
Marcus, from a game administration, how did things go today? I guess maybe especially on the offensive side of the ball, where there's some new faces and new coaches.
Yeah, it was really good because I was concerned we didn't really use play clocks many practices before today, right? And there was times in practice before today that you're like, okay, hey, you got to be aware of the play clock. I know we're not using the play clock right now, and there was no play clock issues. It was good. The quarterbacks had great awareness. So the communication from Coach Parker down to the signalers was really clean, just from my perspective. Obviously, we got to go back and watch film, but it was really good to see, the communication really from the press box down to the signaler to the quarterback. Sometimes we huddled, sometimes we didn't. We did a lot of different things. And so it was really, really good to see.
And then my second would be, noticed the other day a lot of the coaches had on the headsets, whether it was O'Leary, Dealin, Chancey at the time. What's the mindset behind that? What are the benefits behind that? Kind of how did that come about?
Yeah, you have scripted periods and you have periods that you don't want scripted, right? And obviously for Gerad and the offensive staff, it's new. It's those guys getting the ability to connect and to, have conversation and communication on, hey, what are you thinking here? And getting the call in and obviously going through the signalers. But defensively, there's times that we say, hey, don't script it, call it. And so they can communicate. It's really loud. We try to create a loud environment to make them overly communicate. So for coaches, sometimes the best way to communicate is using a headset.
Third row on your left, Tim Priester.
Coach, a bigger picture question in terms of offense and flow and tempo. Last year you slowed it down frequently to maybe mitigate some shortcomings and play to strengths. How are you looking at that this year? Regardless who the quarterback is, are you more comfortable running a faster pace, and what does Gerad Parker like to do?
Yeah, all I encourage him is to vary the tempo. right? I don't want to be just a 100% tempo team. I don't want to be a 100% huddle team. There's different ways to vary the tempo that I think can keep the offense off balance, the defense off balance. And they've done a good job at running some tempo plays. They've done some, as you saw us do last year, is hurry to line of scrimmage and scan over to the sideline. We huddle if we need to. So the ability to have multiple tempos is what I want.
In terms of how you're trying to utilize Lorenzo Styles, we saw him on both sides of the ball now. What's the big picture moving forward with Styles?
Yeah, Katie kind of brought that up to me. So how much did you guys see him in DB the other day in practice? One play? One play. No, it's good. That's we're kind of experimenting a little bit with him. I think he has a lot of athletic abilities that could really help us on both sides of the ball. The problem is he hasn't spent much time in the defensive film room with the defensive coaches. And so we said in one-on-ones, hey, every once in a while go get a rep of DB. And the one rep he got the other day, it was a really good rep. And I told him, like, hold on now. Like, this road to where you want to go is bumpy on either side of the ball, right? It isn't always going to be that easy. But we're kind of experimenting with him on both sides. He'll probably get a little bit more DB work next week. And then I foresee him in the spring game probably playing a little bit on both sides. Today was all receiver. Today all he played was receiver.
If I could, I apologize, but whose idea was that? I mean, did you go to him or him?
It was my, coming from my background, I told him I see a lot of traits that he possesses that really could resonate on the defensive side of the ball. But I want it to be his decision. I want him to feel good about, what position he's playing. And so I said, hey, if you want to experiment a little bit, play a little bit of DB on one-on-ones, like play man. And now he did it in high school. And I know a lot of people from where he's from in Columbus, Ohio, and they said he was a dang good DB in high school. And so I've always just kind of, put that carrot in his ear. But it was him ultimately to say, okay, hey, I want to try it. I want to try it, Coach. I know you've said it, and you said it. And we'll see after next week what we decide to do with him.
Third row on your right, Tim O'Malley.
Coach, staying with wide receivers, when the freshman Caleb Smith comes in, you'll have 10. It's a lot more than you had last year going into the season. What do you need from that group, since half of them are young, or Tyree's not young but transitioning? What do you need to see from that group going into August camp where you're more confident in what you have than when you began spring?
Just development. Precision, right? It is exact details. And what happens when you are precise and you're exact in your alignments and your route running, now there's a trust built between the quarterback and the wideouts. Right now you see a lot of times our quarterbacks, and we've gotten tremendously better over 11 practices, at times are waiting to see them open before they throw it instead of trusting and knowing exactly where that wideout's going to be. And so they have to continue to develop. They've developed a tremendous amount. Coach Stuckey's done a great job with that room. Those three freshmen are all practicing at a much higher level than when they came in. And so as you see this progression get into August, just continue to improve. And how do you improve? Not just your skill set, but the exact details of the position. And then that trust is built between the wideouts and the quarterback.
Switching to defense, we've seen Jack Kaiser play in a lot of roles, and I'm sure he will again this year. When he's inside, does that open the door for someone else at Rover? Or is it, obviously, your Rover becomes a nickel quite often. What do you kind of like for his versatility there, and how does that help someone else at Rover?
Yeah, I think the more he can do, it gives others opportunities, right? And so if Jack Kaiser is a one-position guy, we know Jack Kaiser is going to be on the field. And if he's a one-position guy, well, the guy behind him, it might be a younger guy, isn't going to get an opportunity to get on the field as much. But now if you got a guy like Jack that can play multiple positions, you can give those inside guys a break and get a younger guy or inexperienced guy on the field at that Rover position. So again, the guys on the field have to be able to do their job. But a guy that can do multiple positions creates an opening for another guy.
Back to your left, second row, Sean Sires.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask about a couple guys I don't think we saw the last couple times we've been out there, Christian Gray and Prince Colley, just what their statuses are right now.
Christian had a knee scope Thursday. He had his knee scope, so he'll be out for the remainder of spring. And then Prince Colley is still in concussion protocol. It happened last week, last Saturday, I think. So I hope to get him back this upcoming week and try to get some more reps out of him for Saturday, but he's in concussion protocol.
Okay. And then I think it was the start of the first time we talked to you this spring, you talked about the safety position, sort of evaluating it over the course of the spring and then maybe make, decision on what you might do. So what you've seen from them and anything that might be going on in the future.
Oh, it's great, the depth. I mean, to have three guys at any moment that we rotate. Coach Golden does something really cool, and for the first couple of days, really all the practices, he's kind of have a different starting lineup. And part of that is Xavier Watts at safety, Ramon Henderson, DJ Brown, and those guys, all three of them are practicing at a high level. And then you get a guy like Ben Minnick, who practiced probably for 8 practices, and then he had a procedure on his thumb that he won't finish spring on the practice field. But it's really good to see. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting any. Marty Hour. Is there any other safeties I'm forgetting? No, but it's really good to see those three that I was talking about, right? DJ, Ramon, and Xavier really all play with the ones, really all continue to improve and practice at a high level.
All right, to your right, first row, Pete Sampson.
Yeah, Joe Rudolph talked about sort of coaching to the rule, and then that spring that's what he likes to do. Then you get into 11-on-11, and Al Golden's defense is forcing you to coach to the exception of the rule, or the exception of the exception of the rule.
Yeah,
I was interested in how you balance spring ball in terms of serving both sides of the ball, because there may be a day where you want to let Golden go nuts with blitz, package, and exotics, and that might not serve the offensive line, but I'm sure there are other days that's flipped. So how do you balance those two things?
Well, I think there's times where communication is vital, right? Is between the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator being on the same page and communicating on what they're going to see. But what you don't want to do is slow down the progress of the defense. You're talking about the defense being in year 2. All the coaches are the same. A lot of guys are returning. What they're doing defensively is at a totally different level than what it even was last year. I mean, those guys are playing at a really high level and doing multiple different things. And the offense, even though the terminology is the same, and there's a couple coaches that are the same, they're still continuing to gel together as they move forward. But communication is vital. The other thing is it can't always be outcome driven. That's the one thing you'll hear me say all the time is that I'm not always concerned about who wins or loses. Last year had to be competitive spirit. We got to be competitive. You got to win every drill. And I felt that's what we needed. This year it's we have to continue to progress. I'm not worried about August yet. I'm just worried about getting better. So maybe, there's exceptions to the rules, and maybe there's success on defense because we haven't installed that offensively, but can we teach and get better from it? And that's what I make sure to reiterate to all the coaches. I'm the worst one. Don't be so outcome driven. Don't be outcome driven. Make sure we are continuing to improve, and that's important.
Micro question. Jordan Botelho today, scrimmage situation. I'm sure the juices are flowing a little bit for him today. How are you able to move him around? What do you sort of think of his performance today?
I haven't. I saw him out there. He did some good things. I don't know if he had. There wasn't a whole bunch of sacks. There was a couple, but those guys weren't live. The quarterbacks, for the most part, but Tyler and Sam weren't live. Steve was a little bit, and Kenny was a little bit, but he seemed like he was out there doing his job. We'll have to go back and watch the film. I don't have a great evaluation of Jordan Botelho, but defensively it was good. Offensively it was really good work.
Back to your left, front row, Patrick Engel.
Marcus, in talking about how you don't want to be outcome driven, in that sense, what have you kind of wanted to see from the offense this spring and kind of how you've processed what they've done and kind of what you wanted to see in the scrimmage today?
It's progression. It's not just a one-word answer where I wanted to see this. I want to see progression and show them what progression means. Are you taking drills? Are you taking examples from practice 1 or practice 2 and improving in practice 8 and 9? And one of those examples was a third down play in practice 6. Sam Hartman versus cover 2. It was a third down. He's looking to Tobias. I think it was Tobias on the sideline. And they weren't on the same page. There was a lack of trust, right, between Tobias and Sam and Tobias. And then practice 8 or 9, the exact same situation came up, third down, the exact same defensive call, and there was a completion. Why? Because trust is built. We're learning. We're progressing, and that's what you want to see. You want to see, are there drills we're doing on practice 2, are they being implemented in real situations? And so all those things matter. Are we eliminating pre-snap errors? Are we making sure we're aligned perfectly in our details? And I hear Coach Parker talking all the time, like, hey, we can't hurt Notre Dame, right? We have to make sure if there's 100%ers, which I said last year, right? If they're 100%ers, we got to be 100% on them. And so that means alignments. That means knowing exactly what you got to do. And so that's what you want to see. You know what I mean? Eliminating mistakes and really progressing as an offense.
So you might have just answered this in the anecdote you just shared there, but how do you feel about the progress from practice 1 to scrimmage, and when you factor in some of the newness and Sam being new and Gerad being new, and obviously some situations where you want to let the defense kind of get after it?
Yeah, I think the one thing that sticks out to me is I don't think that there was a pre-snap penalty on offense, which is really encouraging. And I might be wrong, but I don't remember stopping a play because of the play clock or because of a false start on offense, and that's really encouraging. The rest, the execution, we'll continue to get better at, but those pre-snap penalties, to me, it shows that, hey, you're progressing, or, hey, we got a lot of work to do in that area of our offense, and to have 0 pre-snap penalties is really encouraging.
In the middle on your right, Mike Ferradino. Oh, I'm sorry, Eric Hansen, I'm sorry, far right.
It was a fake. Coach, can you give us a little bit of a thumbnail on what you saw from your quarterbacks, each of your quarterbacks today? And then do you have a timetable for naming a number 1?
No. It was asked me. Somebody asked me the same question yesterday. We'll name a starting quarterback when.
Well, that was a smart person.
We'll name a starting quarterback when I'm fully confident we have one starting quarterback. I think both of them could be starting quarterbacks for us right now. They're both improving and they're both getting better. So if you can have a competition, right, and 2 guys are getting better, that's what you want, right? That's what you want, and they're both getting better and they're both practicing at a high level. So we'll name a starter at some point. I know we have to. I don't plan to let this thing go into the season. But at some point I know we have to name a starter, and we will. But you know what? There was no takeaways, no turnovers. We had 1 fumble on offense. Was the only turnover in the scrimmage today. And you're talking 90 plays and 1 fumble. That's really, really encouraging. No pre-snap penalties. Those are the little things that say, okay, you are progressing as an offense. You're doing the little things efficiently. And that's really good to see. There was no interceptions thrown. Guys it seemed to be executing at a high level. I got to go back and watch the film and be able to say, okay, this guy screwed up or this guy screwed up. But when you pull back and you say no pre-snap penalties, 1 turnover, which was a fumble by a running back, and that's encouraging.
You have 3 starting returning linebackers with a lot of experience, and you have some stud athletes coming up that are ascending players. I'm wondering, especially with Colley and Snead, who missed some time, and let's throw Nolan Ziegler in there, how do they fit into the bigger picture with the linebackers?
Yeah, that's the beauty and sometimes the difficulties of a team sport is that, you got really good players all in one room. And at the only 1, 2 at certain positions, 3 can get on the field at a time. And so you have to build that trust and that unselfishness in that room while also developing their skill set. And so it's a really challenging thing to do as a position coach, which I've been in that position where, okay, we have a lot of talented guys in this room. I need everybody to get better and everybody wants to play. But how can we make sure we have a culture of respect and love for each other that no matter who's on the field, where it's what's best for Notre Dame or what's best for the team. And so that's a constant message that's preached every day because this isn't an individual sport. All right, I only say this is an individual sport when we have failures. I want it to be an individual sport when we have failures. Everybody looks at themselves. But it is the ultimate team sport. And so that, to me, is a message that has to be driven every day. I want you to get better as an individual. In order to get better as an individual, you're going to have to practice. You're going to have to study. You're going to have to do things to develop that skill. But at the end of the day, whoever's on that field represents this room and this program. And ultimately, that's all that matters.
On your left, Tyler James.
Marcus, you've been asked a number of questions about the offense, and I think that may be in part because during the 2 practices we saw the offense was struggling a bit. I'm curious, how would you characterize how the offense has been through the whole spring? Has it been like that? Has the defense been ahead of the offense, or has it been more we just were on the bad days for the offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one day you guys were there was a third down day, and it's third and long, and that's not a good situation for the offense. But as I told them, there's a lot of positives that maybe the outcome doesn't show. And that's what my focus is. I'm not looking at who won or lost the drill. Okay, is there positive? Are we getting better at protection? Are we getting better at making sure we can read coverages? Are we throwing the ball? Are we making the right decision? There's a lot of positives going to happen. And we all sometimes, you all, me sometimes too, look at the outcome. They didn't convert. That doesn't mean there's not positives, right? And so all we have to do is continue to get better. Because if all of a sudden you convert and you're like, man, we're the best in the world, well, are you really that focused on improving? And so that's what I try to continue to preach. I need our players to understand, our coaches to understand, like, we can't always be outcome driven. The defense lost today. Does that mean they didn't play well? No. They played extremely well. And so how can we find the positives, right, in this progression of practice as we prepare for August? We'll get to August. We'll get to Dublin, Ireland when it gets here. But I'm just looking for progression. And that doesn't always mean that the outcome is what we want. There's a progression in terms of getting that desired outcome at some point.
I don't know if you've had any time to sort of soak in the new recruiting rule changes with the recruiting calendar and the fact that kids will now be able to take an official visit to more than 5 schools. They're unlimited in terms of being able to take one for every school. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have thoughts on that? Do you think it'll impact Notre Dame in any way?
No. Just means that kids can take they can only take one official visit to Notre Dame. And so that's all I'm concerned about was what kids can we get to take an official visit to Notre Dame. And so the more opportunities we can have to do that, the better. And listen, I don't make the rules, I follow them. And so, you always have to be able to adapt and adjust to the rules that are set in place. And with that change, we just got to understand that kids can take more than 5 official visits. But we all understand, again, our job is no matter what is to make sure if there's 5 official visits, one of them are to Notre Dame. If there's 100 official visits, one is to Notre Dame, because that's what matters for us.
Okay, now it's Mike's turn. We'll wrap it up with him.
Always save the best for last, huh?
So you kind of gave me the segue where you said you'll get to Dublin when you get there, but with the uniqueness of Navy, have you been able to steal any periods of preparation? How has that looked? And I think we saw Chase Ketterer with a sling as well.
Yeah.
The other day. Who's your backup scout team Navy quarterback, and just how has all that affected that process?
Yeah, we've done some preparation in the film room and game planning, but we haven't practiced Navy yet. And we actually are going to have a practice on Tuesday. I think that will be focused on Navy. You just brought up a great point that I haven't even thought about. So we better go figure out who's going to be that scout team quarterback that Chase Ketterer is out. That's a great point. No, we got a couple guys. I know Justin Fisher did it at Mishawaka, and we got a. I mean, listen, it isn't going to be perfect, no matter if it's Chase Ketterer or anybody else. It's hard to replicate what you're going to see versus Navy. It's impossible. It's impossible. But we got to be able to teach somebody to be able to get some good reps on Tuesday.
Then I have a more of a broad question about the trend of now there are 4 different black coaches in positions here, not just football, but both basketball and volleyball, and it's gotten some national attention. And so we're kind of asking each of those coaches, what is the significance of being part of that trend in a short period of time, the last 3 years? And I guess, could there be a ripple effect of that? And what's it say about Notre Dame and in this process?
It's a good question, huh? I think it speaks volumes on Jack Swarbrick, Father Jenkins, our administration in terms of hopefully they made the best hire regardless of color, and I've always said this at some point, it's going to be great when we don't have to make it a big deal that we have 4 coaches of color in major sports, but I don't want to deflect that there are, right? It's awesome, and it's a credit to to the coaches, to Coach Shrewsbury and Salima and Niel, and they're great coaches, right? And so hopefully they were hired for the right reason. They've done a great job, and Coach Shrewsbury, I'm sure, will continue to do a great job as he did at Penn State. And but again, to me, it's still an ongoing process to get to the point where it's not a big deal, right? It's Notre Dame hired the best candidates for each position, and this is their skin color, you know, and so that's a progression in our country that we obviously have to continue to make. But again, a special shout out to Jack Swarbrick and Father Jenkins and our whole administration for hopefully making a decision that they felt was best regardless of how anybody looks.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Good. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, Coach Golden is right outside, everybody, so raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. We're going to start right with questions.
How we doing, guys?
Hey, Coach, we're going to go right into questions.
Please.
We'll start on your left in the front row with Patrick Ingram.
Al, when you kind of looked at the defensive line from practice 1 to now, how do you feel about, one, just the depth with some guys who didn't maybe have as many opportunities last year, getting more of them now, and some of the guys who you might be looking at as stepping into bigger roles or starting roles and how they've done?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Vitello stepping into a bigger role, Junior stepping into a bigger role. Burnham has done a nice job. Inside, Anya has made progress, which is great. Heinisch has made progress. So, I mean, there's a bunch of guys battling there. And there's still time. We have a couple other guys that we need to step up. JJB has made a big difference at end. Him and Nana are doing a great job there, and Baptiste is doing a great job learning the defense. So that's been positive too.
And throughout the spring, what's been your emphasis or message to, I guess, maybe all three of the fifth-year guys at linebacker, and even then maybe individually each of those three?
Just challenging them to get better. Find things every day to get better at. I think Kai's has done that. It's been great to see his progression, being able to play inside and outside. So I'm really pleased with his spring so far. JD, we challenged him to lead, continue to lead, be more of a team leader, unit leader, which has been great. And Maris has to have the versatility to go on and off the ball. So I think he's improved his edge stuff. So I think, all three of those guys are challenged every day, and they've responded.
You're going to go on your far right, Eric Hansen in the front row.
Hey, Coach. I wanted to ask about Collie Ziegler and Sneed. I know Sneed and Collie have missed a little bit of time with injuries, but have those guys been able to kind of forge a role, even though you have starters coming back?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. The three that you just mentioned are they're all going in the game. There's no doubt about it. They're all in the rotation, and PK was having a really good off season until he got banged up, and Sneed made a lot of progress as well. So it was great to see Sneed back out there, and I think Zig's off the field approach in terms of his preparation and his study in the game has made a big difference for him.
And then it came up in Marcus's press conference about Lorenzo Styles maybe dabbling a little bit on defense. Do you have any thoughts about having that happen?
Well, we would, obviously we'd love to have him. That's the head coach's decision. But if that's the direction it goes here in the next, 24, 48 hours, then we'll get to work with him. Love the young man. Saw him twice yesterday, once on campus walking, and then I saw him at dinner last night. So maybe that's a good sign for us. I don't know. But probably corner. But tremendous young man and deserving of an opportunity to make an impact here at Notre Dame, and he will do that. I promise you, he's a great kid.
We're going to go on your left, third row to Priester.
Coach, as it relates to the safety position, on one hand, you have three guys there that probably know your system pretty well, but you don't have a lot of numbers there. How do you view that position at this point of the spring?
Yeah, depth is a concern, and then obviously at safety, with Harp out and Minnick out, and then Cam out at corner. There's a couple of guys at corner that could help us at safety too in a dual capacity. So we're stressed right now on the back end, number wise. So we got some help, coming, and obviously getting these guys healthy is going to be huge.
I did want to ask you about corners. Which ones might dabble a little bit at safety, and could the transfer portal come in play upon the conclusion?
Yeah, we're not there yet. We haven't had those discussions yet. Right now we're just trying to evaluate today and see where we're at. But clearly, number wise, we still need help, and Barnes has been training a little bit at safety as well, so that helps.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up with Tyler James right there on your last second row.
I wanted to ask about Thomas Harper. How have you been able to gauge what sort of progress and understanding he has in the defense? How much has he been able to contribute for you guys?
Well, he's learning. He's learning really. He's doing a great job learning. He's spending a lot of extra time with CO and love his energy. Just love his passion and demeanor on the field. Like, he loves the game. You can tell he loves the game. So I'm really anxious to see him make an impact both at safety and nickel. But really enjoy being around the young man.
When we've been able to see full practices, you guys have been throwing lots of different looks at the offense and mixing up different packages, a lot of third down situations. Is that more of an emphasis going into the season, or that just happened to be the days that were
probably just the days that you're there, to be honest with you. Really, we're trying to improve in every area, and we really spent a lot of time in the offseason just making sure that the defenses that we install this spring are going to have use the entire year and getting rid of everything else. So that's been our focus. Thanks. All right, guys, enjoy your weekend.
Okay, same drill for Coach Parker. If you guys want to get a question, raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. Okay, Coach, we're going to go right into questions. Okay. We're going to start with Todd Burlage, front row on your left.
Gerad, obviously you're going to be asked a bunch about the quarterbacks here, so I'll just get the ball rolling here a little bit. As you evaluate the competition between the top two guys there, how would you explain the development or the dynamic between those two?
Yeah, I've said it in the time we've had a chance to talk about it. I think that for us, the development has happened through a strong relationship that's being built by the room, through Gino and the guys. And we think as a staff, that's probably the best part, that they've really bonded, which you have to in that room to get things solved. So the development has happened well off the field, which really helps it. And I said this the other day in another interview. I think that anytime you add maturity and guys like Sam Hartman to your program and to that room, all it does is make everybody better. And this Notre Dame has taught me now more than ever, that's what Notre Dame's about. Like, we want to put special people in this program from the head coach down. And when you do that, it's the adage that high tide raises all boats. And that is what I've seen and what we've seen as a staff. So, I'm not dodging the question everybody's going to want to ask. The development's been good. Buckner and Sam have both played a high level. It's great to see Minchie come out today and play some high-level reps as a guy that still should be in high school. And Steve Angeli has really showed some promise in throwing the football as well. So that's really where it is. So all four have developed in their own way.
Has anything surprised you through the competition so far?
Honestly, usually I would probably say, there would be an honest answer, or maybe yes, but not really. It's been probably expected Tyler Buckner to be exactly what he's been this spring and more, and expected the same of Sam as he's improved, but also had to learn an entirely different way of life, if you will, in an offensive setting. So to see that progress, probably no surprise at this point, honestly.
Shift over on your right, third row, Tim O'Malley.
Coach, focus on the wide receivers. Who are a couple of players that have taken the steps and where you could actually lose Caleb Smith and still consider Lorenzo Styles getting reps at cornerback? It used to be such a small group last year, as you recall. These young guys coming in, who are some players, whether young or older, that have really taken steps forward this spring? Yeah,
it's good, and you're right. I was thinking about it before I came in to visit with you all, that you're writing names down, and that's good, right? I think the development of Chris Tyree is certainly something that's going to be a factor for us, and as he learns how to play that position, Tobias has taken necessary steps. JT, as he continues to work what it means to be able to play every down and really force himself to be in shape to do that, is really taking steps. Those three kind of veterans, if you will, kind of show up in different ways, which has been great. The young guys that are here, again, that should be in high school right now are just learning, but there's certainly so much to see from them that you like. Deion Colsey is taking some steps in certain practices, and if we continue to work on his consistency, we feel good. But you've got a rack of names there that you start to feel good about being able to play and not have to be so put them on the sheet, put them on a call sheet, and have to sub so many out and move the pieces so much. You'd rather be able to sit still with them a little bit.
And you're going to get a lot more help at your position, tight end, in August, obviously with two guys returning and Cooper Flanagan coming in. Stays and Evans, what did they do this year and this spring in terms of, obviously they have giant shoes to fill. How have they handled that?
Yeah, it's like it would not be fair to not admit that there is a huge void there, right? The void has to be filled. How? Not just by the tight ends. I'm not wanting them to feel a daunting task. The game and the bowl game really helped us with that to start it. Mitch has taken steps, his body composition and things, they've done a phenomenal job with him, and he's taken steps and showed what he can be and stayed healthy, knock on wood, right? He stayed healthy. Holden Stays has taken necessary steps and started to play consistent football, run and pass. And those guys that you mentioned that we'll get back in the fall have also been very purposeful about being present even though they're not taking reps, which I think is huge because those two guys coming back will certainly be factors in how we play big.
All right, going to your left, third row, Tim Priestley.
Coach, in terms of tempo, Coach Reese slowed things down on occasion last year to accentuate what you did well and maybe cover up some things. How do you view tempo? Do you want to play fast, or are you looking at a combination of tempos?
Yeah, and again, it'll be a very open answer that we will want to play fast when it is best for Notre Dame. We'll want to slow it down when it's best for Notre Dame, and want to do all in the middle. So I'm not dodging it, but it really is. You'll see us play faster at times. That's probably fair to admit, but it won't be to be reckless. It'll be with purpose. So we'll use tempo to our advantage at times. We used it today and throughout spring to give ourselves the ability to be able to operate as fast as we could, but then also slow it down, huddle up, and break that thing with a purpose too.
Coach Guidugli has experience as an offensive coordinator. I wonder what your conversations have been like with him throughout spring.
Well, he and Joe Rudolph both have coordinating experience. Back to what I just mentioned about the quarterback room, what better environment to put yourself around than guys who have had to sit in that chair, build a game plan with other men, call plays, and deal with the stress of calling those plays and what that means. So they've been great additions, and Dealin and Stuck being here with us, and we've already been through the battles together, has been awesome. But I would say both of those guys with coordinating experience have been valuable and will prove that way next fall even more.
All right, staying on your left, second row, Sean Stein.
Hey, Coach, just your first spring and all, what you've seen as far as the evolution of this offense from day one through the scrimmage today.
Yeah, I think it's been good for us. It was awesome to be able to start day one. I think I said this before spring, to be able to know that we could line up, snap the football, and operate with all the things pre-snap before even worrying about trying to execute. There's a lot that goes into just being able to have the ability to get the ball snapped. And so that was a great start. The evolution has been, what are we going to cut? What are we going to rename? How are we going to play with different tempos and certain things that allow us to operate maybe differently? And then add what our wrinkles are. So we've been proud to add some things that we think are going to improve us and make Notre Dame better. And then still stand on who we are, which is to be a tough physical football team up front. So hopefully we've done those things.
Then you touched a little bit on the three freshman early enrollee receivers. I realize how early it is still right now, but are you seeing any inklings that maybe one or two of those guys could be a contributor in the fall?
Yeah, maybe's fair. No need to put pressure on those guys. They'll put enough on themselves, and this place does that because of expectations. They're right where they need to be. All of them show great promise. They're eager, and they're figuring it out. And that takes a little bit of the bumpy road that Coach Free talks about, but the guys are here, they're eager, and they all three show great promise moving forward.
All right, staying on your left in the front row, going to wrap it up with Patrick Abel.
Jerry, we heard Marcus talk about wanting to see progress, even if it's not necessarily outcome-driven. From what you've seen, what's been your sense of progress from practice one through what you just saw out there, even if maybe not all the time there was obvious outcomes that you want to see that would be obvious signs of progress?
Yeah, I think that, so the biggest thing that probably notable would be that we did put the ball on the ground with QB center exchange a little bit more than we wanted to. Didn't respect the ball in the red zone as much with some throws for multiple reasons. And as this thing has really unfolded the last 3-4 practice, we've respected the ball way better from QB center exchange, from the way we dealt with it in running back position, O-line protection, all that. So protecting the ball has certainly taken a step and improved. That would where we would start in our pillars. I think that shows. And to be honest with you, I really think that operating today with a true shot clock and having to manage personnel changes and operate from the sideline, we certainly took a step in our operation and trading where we had no pre-snaps and those things. That stuff took a step forward. I think if we're operating at a high level, not have to burn timeouts, and we're honoring the ball, we can fix the rest.
What have you seen from Sam, just how he's kind of handled some of the newness and being in a new setting and kind of maybe going through some things that you might not fix or get comfortable with in one practice or 9 practices with a new team?
Well, his ability and maturity to not panic. I think that's the deal. Like when you've been through a lot of fires like he has, and when you're in this game as a coach player, you understand that you got to be able to take the breath, manage things, not ride the wave of emotion. And Sam's been able to do that. You know, he's been able to manage some failures on things that just are going to happen because that's just the growth of learning new. And he's managed those and not let himself get too high or too low from them. And it's put himself in a position just to keep on getting better. And that's, you can see that from a veteran guy.
All right, thanks, Coach. Appreciate
Thank you all.
Yep.